Welcome back to the vlog. We're going to be over at Capital Casino playing in the 1-3 game. Game has been very good lately. I haven't been catching a lot of good cards though. So hopefully today will be a little bit better. We'll see how it goes. Sit back, relax, enjoy. Here it comes. Been playing for about 40 minutes, just holding on to my stack. Couple limpers, player opens for 30 on the button. Good solid player. I call with 2 jacks from the small blind. You could 3-bet this, or you can just call and see a flop. He's a good player, so I decided just to call. Flop comes out 8 high with 2 hearts. I check it over to him. I figured he would probably c-bet most of his range, including all overpairs, flush draws, even some ace-king, ace-queen type of hands. He doesn't disappoint. He bets up for $55. Now, 2 jacks on this board is probably one of the better flops I'm going to be getting. If he has 2 overcards, I want to deny equity. If he has a pocket pair like 9s or 10s, I want to question it. And I decided to go ahead and put it in a raise for 120 more. So I make it 175 total. My opponent ended up tanking for over 2 minutes trying to decide what to do with this. He finally decided on a fold. He later told me that he folded pocket 10s. So a good fold on his part. I kind of like this bet, whether I had it or not. It really puts pressure on those middling pocket pairs. Been card dead for a long time. It's 2 hours into my session. There was an open for $20, and 4 players called the $20. Here I'm in the small blind, and I was going to raise it to about 140, but we were just talking about the hand where I raised in the last vlog with 7-8 suited to 110, and so I couldn't resist myself, so I had to make it 110. The player in the +1 puts in the call. He has about a $400 stack. Player behind him also puts in the call. He's a little bit deeper, probably has me covered by 100 or so. He also puts in the call. The rest of the players end up folding out, so we're going to end up going 3 ways to see this flop with almost $400 in the pot. Flop comes out Jack 9-6 with 2 spades. So a very coordinated board. A lot of my opponent's hands are going to be right in that range with King Queen, King Jack, Ace Jack. I got a pot size bet left. I just go ahead and put it all in. No need to get too fancy here. Just got to put the money in when you think you're good. If they flopped a set of 6s or set of 9s, so be it. If they had a hand like pocket jacks, I think they would have raised pre-flop. Don't want to give them a cheap draw at some sort of gut shot, or even if they flopped some sort of flush draw or open-ended. Make them pay. They both end up folding, so it's not a big pot, but it's better than losing. All right, one player limps in from +1. I look down at King Queen offsuit, decide to raise to 15, get a call from the player on the button, the blind, and the limper. So we're going 4 ways to a flop that comes out Queen Jack Deuce, rainbow. Pretty good flop for my hand. I decided to check it just to be a little bit deceptive. Turn card comes as a deuce of diamonds. First 2 players check again. I figure it's time to value my hand and put in a little wager. So I decided to bet 40. I'm thinking I might get a call from someone with a jack, maybe someone with a diamond draw. First 2 players fold out, and now the +1 player decides to check raise to $100. Kind of an odd line. He's representing that he has a deuce in this spot. I'm not really a believer that he does, but I'm going to put in a call and see what happens on the river. River card comes out as a 7 of diamonds, and now my opponent bets out for $250. Man, he's betting this thing like he has the absolute nuts. So what could it be? Like a full house? I don't even think he will bet a nut flush like this. So pocket queens, well, I'm blocking a queen, so there's one combination. Pocket jacks, would he slow play that? Probably not, but there's 3 combinations of that. Pocket deuces, okay, 1 combination of that. So there's 5 combinations that I'm losing to. Some of them are not very likely, and I did under-rep my hand on the flop, so maybe he's just making a play. And let's face it, there are a lot of hands he could be making a play with. And is this player capable of making a play? I'm sure he is. He's a good player. So I'm going, Okay, 5 hands I lose to, and God, maybe 50 hands that I beat that are bluffs. I don't think I can fold. I'm just not a believer. So I put in the call. And he proudly rolls over pocket deuces. Yeah, he had quads. That's one of the 5 hands I couldn't beat. Well played, sir. You got me good. All right, I don't recommend doing this, but I did it, so I'm telling you about it. There is some players that are pretty steamed. I'm under the gun with 2 kings. I decided to go for the Limp-Re-raise because I am 100% sure that one of them is going to be raising. So the button ends up raising. The small blind, who's also pretty steamed, puts in the call. And now it's to me, and here I am. I got 2 players in my trap. So I spring it. I make it 65, so it costs them 50 more to call. The player on the button decides to get out of the way, and the other one says, oh, I want to make the vlog. I want to beat you. I call. So he puts in the call, and yeah, we're going to a flop heads up with about $145 in it. Flop comes up, Jack 3 4, 2 spades. He checks it over to me, and I continue for $50. I definitely want to get action from a player with 1 pair, or maybe someone with a draw. I have kings, pretty good hand, heads up. I'm willing to gamble with this guy if he wants to come along. After thinking for a little bit, he does put in the call. And just looking for something that looks like a safe card on the turn. I really want to get the rest of my chips in. Hopefully he has some sort of pair. Turn card comes to 9 hearts. Doesn't really connect with too much. If he had maybe Jack 9, he has me beat now. He checks again. I got about $215 remaining, so I put a little over half of it in, and he snap check raises me all in. And yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm in trouble here, but $100 behind to win a $700 pot. I'm putting in the call. River's a queen of clubs, and he shows me the 9-3 of diamonds. All right, I'm going to take a moment to talk about this play. Usually on the Limp-Re-raise, you don't want to do it if you're a deep stack because you're giving up way too much information and information that can be used against you. So normally, if you have 100 big blinds or less, I say if you want to do it once in a while, go ahead. You get a lot of value from just playing your hand straightforward though, and it's more disguised. So this particular player picked up that I had a very good premium hand. Of course, I did the Limp-Re-raise, right? So he knew I had a pair of kings, and I knew that he wanted to gamble. My mistake on this hand, if there was one, was the size of my flop bet. I only bet $50. Knowing that he is tilted and wanting to gamble and is trying to chase me down, I should have bet 100 or maybe even more than 100. Because if he's really that in need of chasing me down and tilted, let him pay the max. I gave him a price, and it was a good price in my book, but I also gave him a price with too much information. So he knew that if he caught 2 pair that he was probably going to double through me. So he gambled. He took one off for $50 and got there. Now whether he takes one off for $100 or $120, he still might. He still might get there. But at least I make him pay a little bit more to do so. Well, it's time to reload again. I played for a little bit longer at that table, and then that table ended up breaking and moved over to a new table. The same player that just beat me in the last hand is to my right, and here I have ace king of clubs. He made a $6 straddle. I opened for 20, and we end up getting 3 callers for the 20. So we're going to go 4 ways to this flop, and I got a premium hand and looking to get some revenge. Flop comes out Jack, Queen, 5 with 1 clubs. So I got 2 overs, a gutter, and a backdoor flush draw. First 2 players end up checking. I'm going to continue and play this hand a little bit fast. I bet 30. Player behind me ends up finding the fold. The other player in the blind ends up finding the fold. And the guy who got me on that last hand, he might be still a little bit hot and willing to gamble, puts in the call. So what kind of hands can he have? He can have a wide range. I don't think he has top pair. He might be calling with a jack, maybe even a 5, maybe some sort of gut shot straight draw. Turn card comes as 3 of spades. does absolutely nothing for my hand. Hopefully it does absolutely nothing for his. And with the lead, I'm going to continue for $60. He doesn't think too long before letting it go. So we get one through, finally. So I'm in the small blind. There was a raise to 15. I defend with ace-8 suited. Pretty good hand for blind. Flop comes out ace-king-8. I check it. It gets checked over to the initial raiser, who also checks. And it gets checked around to the player on the button, who was the same player from the previous hand. He decides that he wants to bet, and he decides an amount of $35. Now, he could have just a pair of aces, a pair of kings. He could have an 8. He can have a flush draw. He can have a lot of different hands. But the only thing I know is that he is still wanting to gamble. And after making the mistake of my bet sizing with the pocket kings, I decided that I'm just going to play all my hands against him a little bit faster than I would normally. So here, sometimes I would just flat with 2 pair and let him value own himself, or maybe get an overcall from one of the other players. But why? So I raised to 95. It gets folded back around to him, so it costs him 60 more to call. He thinks for a while and decides to put in the call. So with 265 in the pot, we see a turn card of a 5 of hearts. Perfect card. Here I would normally bet maybe $100, $120. But just knowing that he's in the mood to gamble, I'm going to size up and I make it 215. So yeah, this is much bigger than I would normally bet. If I get action from him, fine. If I don't, I might have lost out on a little bit of value. He thinks for a while and ends up folding, but it's still a pot heading our direction. All right, I'm climbing closer to even. There's a bunch of limpers in front of me, so I got 7s here. This is a good hand just to go ahead and limp along, see if you can flop a set. If you can, might make some money. So we're going to go 5 ways to see this flop. $30 in the pot. The flop is pretty much perfect. Comes ace, 10, 7, rainbow. So it gets checked around to me. I just decided to bet really small, hopefully getting someone to get interested in the spot. Hopefully maybe someone has a 10. Player puts in a quick call. I'm pretty sure he has an ace at this point. So it's heads up and we see a turn card of a 6 of diamonds. It does complete the obvious straight draw. He checks again. I go for value, $25. He doesn't think too long before putting in the call again. Just looking for some blank on the end and maybe get a better size bet out of him. River card comes, is a 5 of diamonds. Another good card. Shouldn't really help him too much. He checks. I decided to bet 55 this time. A little over half pot. He said he wanted to see my hand, so he put the chips in. So I was more than happy to show him that I had a set of 7s. And yeah, we win another one. So table change is working out so far. All right, buckle up for this one. I am under the gun with 2 9s, open for a raise to 15. I end up getting a gazillion callers. Well, maybe not a gazillion, but you get the picture. The player to my left calls, the next player calls, following player calls, a couple other players call. So we're going 6 ways to this flop with 90 in it. Flop comes 7, 6, deuce with 2 spades. I do not have a 9 of spades. Dangerous flop. I decided to check. The very, very aggressive player to my left ends up betting $50. It's folded to the player in seat 2. He has about 1,000 in his stack. The player to my left has about 1,000 in his. And I put in the call, and we're going 3 ways to a turn card of a 4 of hearts. I check. The player to my left now bets 165. What kind of hands would he be doing this with? I figure a 7, 2 pair hands, maybe sets. Maybe he has something like a 7 with a flush draw. He definitely has, I would say, at least a pair. The player who calls behind him, thinking maybe he's more likely to have a draw, maybe like a 8, 9 or flush draw. I'm in a very awkward spot. 9s might be good here. The only problem is it's really hard for 9s to improve from what I currently have. One or both of my opponents could have me beat here. I mean, it's possible the first player's betting and the other one turned the nuts with like 5-8, and it's just smooth calling to get the overcall from me. It's a tough spot. Now, I think there's several ways to go. I don't think there's anything wrong with this letting it go here and folding, because there's a chance that I am just crushed and drawing extremely thin. There's also a thought that maybe I should just jam and price out any kind of draw or get value from any of those draws that I currently have beat, but then I could just run into a monster. Or I can just call and see what the river brings. If it brings like a blank, then maybe I can make some sort of hero call on the end and see if a pair of nines are any good. I decided to put in the call, and we're going to see a river card here, hoping for no spade, no five. It comes to 3 of clubs, which is really interesting. Any 5 now has a straight. The flush does miss. The obvious open-ender also miss. I check. My opponent bets $200. A little bit on the small side, which I'm thankful for, because I didn't want him to shove all in, because then it would be like $700 for me to call. The other player at the end of the table thinks for a while and finally decides just to let his hand go, which is a relief, because I was concerned with him slow playing a monster. And now it's to me. I kind of try to get a feel for it. I get in some small talk with my opponent, seeing if I can get a feel for how comfortable he is with his hand. Now, this is one of the biggest action players in the casino. He is very capable of making this bet with air, a missed flush draw, a single pair. He also could have a set and be valuing it, or 2 pair and be valuing it. So I get a sense that he is not that comfortable with the potential call. So I make the call. He says he has a 7 and he turns over queen 7. I show my 9s and we take down a big one. Woo. All right, we're back in the green. Finally, for our last hand of the evening, we got 6-5 suited in the big blind. There was a small raise to $10, and we end up going 6-way action to a flop of 8-4-7 with 1 diamond. So we flopped the absolute nuts. Yeah, wow, this table change has really worked out. I check it. It gets checked around to a short stack who goes all in for $88. Now, the pre-flop raiser who raised to 10 thinks about it for a while and puts in the call for the 88. Now, they're a good solid player. I don't think they're going to be doing this with like a set or anything like that. But I'm thinking they could have a hand like Jack 10. I mean, they raise small pre-flop. A lot of Jack 10 suited hands would do that. Maybe Jack 9 suited. Maybe they're just doing it with the overcards. Sometimes I would just smooth call and try to get a little bit trappy. But if they have a Jack 10 and I just smooth call and they spike a 9 on the turn and I end up getting stacked because of it, I'm going to be really pissed off. And if they don't have anything, they're probably not going to put too much more money in. So I raised, they folded out, and yeah, our straight was good and we ended up winning for the day. So after a rough start at that first table where I played for 3.5 to 4 hours and couldn't get anything going, was totally card dead except for a couple key hands. And, you know, I kind of got myself trapped with that king-queen hand, paid off the quad deuces. And then the pocket kings, I got them shoved up my you-know-what. And, yeah, I'm okay with it. I just wish I would have bet the flop a little bit bigger. The game ended up breaking, switched over to the new table, sat down and caught a lot of good cards and just flopped well. Let's just face it. Game is really easy when you hit flops. So you flop 2 pair, yeah, it's going to be easy. Flop a straight, great. You know, flop a set, woohoo, this is not hard. So we ended up going from being stuck like $500 to being up $760. That's good enough for me. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Really do appreciate your support. And until next time, good luck at the tables.